Hello again. This is again Eliyahu, and it's a wonderful opportunity for me now to be interviewing an old friend and a teacher from many years ago, and still my teacher, and a good friend. Hello, Shalom.
Hello,
Shalom
Eliyahu.
Siegel. You've had quite a varied spiritual path, and I know now that you're studying in a yeshiva, and you're into Judaism in a very serious, dedicated way. So you've had quite a path, haven't you? And I'd like to hear a little bit about, about the beginning of this path.
The most important step that was really a turning point was when the partner that I was with at that time had a dream. This was here in Israel maybe about 25 years ago already, in which she was taken to the city of Tzfat, which is a city of Kabbalah, and apparently in the dream she was being taught all night long, and when they took her back they said, remember to tell Shalom. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Bar Yochai tell Shalom. Began to go to synagogue, began to put on tefillin and say prayers daily, began to keep kosher, and began to study Kabbalah. And we found Rabbi Ginsburg, an American who also became religious and went very deeply into the Kabbalah. I remember the experience of concentrating so hard to understand what he was talking about, and I felt my mind becoming like a rubber band that was being stretched and getting more taught and tauter and tighter until it snapped. And I was just out in some peaceful place, beyond what my mind was comprehending, and that was my first experience of Rav Ginsburg. Studied with him for 2 years while he was in Jerusalem.
I'm interested in the why and in the what you received from these studies. And yeah.
It was clear to me as I began to get involved with Kabbalah that there's a very, very deep truth in Judaism. And I would even go so far in terms of my own belief to say that the core of Judaism holds the deepest, clearest beliefs and understandings of the universe and of God and of man. And simultaneously, it's very difficult to get through to some of these, to get through to this depth of understanding. But I always knew it was there. I knew it was there. I had a glimpse of it, and I knew it was there. And on the other hand, there was the attractiveness of New Age practices, of whether it was Buddhist or meditation or yoga or any of those practices which brought people onto the spiritual path and were in some ways more easily accessible than the Jewish path. So I was always working on both sides together, trying to and seeing what truth I could take from some of the Eastern approaches that fit in with what my deepening understanding of what Judaism was about, and was clarifying in many ways some of the more dense understandings that I was receiving in Judaism.
Okay, Shalom. You said that Judaism has a deep truth. How would you describe for you what is that truth? What is this core wisdom or teaching that you felt and that keeps you doing what you're doing? No, it's not a simple question. That's maybe a tough one. No maybes.
I would not even begin to attempt to summarize that in a few sentences. Greater masters than me have yeah.
What is the message deep in Judaism that maybe the world needed and still needs? What is in there? What is that message?
Well, I think the reason that I see Judaism the way I see it, in terms of the depths of its truth, is because it resonates with something in me so deeply. There's a resonance.
Nice point.
There's a resonance with me and with what I find in Judaism, which takes me into the deepest places.
Very nice, very nice.
And
really, maybe for somebody from a Buddhist background or from a Native American background, they would say exactly what you just said.
Yes, I can understand that, and I would certainly be the last person to be preaching that Judaism is the only.
Yes,
but it resonates with me in the deepest way. And so whenever I would look in some of the Eastern or New Age approaches to spirituality, I would find things that would help illuminate things that I wasn't understanding so easily in Judaism, because of the density and the difficulty of reaching some of these truths in Judaism.
Can you give me like an example of that? That's not a simple request. What was so valuable?
Well, for example, I know that Jewish prayer can be like a meditation.
Okay.
And I put it that way specifically because it's easy during meditation to touch the spiritual and to touch the infinite and to have a glimpse of it. It's reciting 3 times a day the same prayers that the ancient rabbis instituted as being the path, one of the paths of connecting to God, can be difficult. It's not, you say the prayers over and over again, and it can become very routine, it can become very mundane, it can become...
Indeed.
So meditation helped me deepen my spirituality, my connection, and when I would bring some of that meditative understanding and meditative space into prayer, then I was able to go go much deeper, and prayer, which for me personally has always been a difficult challenge, and only recently is becoming more accessible to me. My path in Judaism into deepening my own spirituality was really through study. It's taught by the ancient sages as being one of the most important paths. That by studying the Word of God and in all its ramifications and all its permutations and all the writings of the sages, will take one into a deeper place. The light through which the world was created has to be hidden so that creation can exist. The simple example is, if we stand too close to the sun, we'll turn into hydrogen and helium atoms, and we won't be able to have an existence if we get too close to the sun. If
not a physical one.
If we stand too close to the source, without that energy being tuned down, we'll just be reabsorbed into the Godhead and become part of the infinite again. The way a river is absorbed into the ocean eventually.
Yes.
And so the river has to have boundaries that will keep it a river.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's ocean.
Indeed.
And so it's the same with us, with humans. We have to be. There has to be this tuning down of the infinite power of the Infinite One, in order for existence to exist, for creation to exist as separate, as it were, as if separate.
Okay. As if separate, but not truly separate.
But not, no, only as an experience of the infinite in a particular manifestation in separateness.
Yes. Okay. Why the whole idea? Why did the Infinite One want to split up and create all these varieties of itself?
That the Infinite One wanted to be able to bestow goodness, to bestow love, and for that to happen, there has to be a receiver.
Yes.
And so he created, I don't think just for the fun of it, but for the joy of it, created a as if separate from him, her, from the Infinite One, so that it could be, so that he could bestow love, he could bestow goodness, he could bestow kindness,
and so that it could know itself as love, as goodness. I mean, what do I know? As kindness, because until something exists to receive that, then it couldn't know itself in these ways.
Well, the Jewish masters, the Jewish sages always taught that we can really not say anything about the Infinite One, about God Himself, about the Holy One, blessed be He, as they refer to Him. That we can only know, all that we can know about God is how He expresses Himself in creation. That's why we have all these anthropomorphic descriptions
nature
of God in the Bible and in all the writings, but we can't really know beyond what exists in creation. All we can say is that the Infinite One created this, and something of Him, which in the Kabbalah is called the Infinite Light, or Ein Sofi, comes through into this creation to create it and sustain it, and to keep it going. God's infinite attention to the universe, to the created universe, is what keeps it in existence. If He were to remove His attention from this universe, or from any part of it, it would cease to exist. The same way when each of us, when we have a dream which is within us that we are creating, as long as our attention is there in the dream, as soon as we wake up, the dream disappears.
Indeed.
And so there's a metaphor, as a way of trying to understand. It's God's continual, infinite attention that is sustaining the universe in creation, so that it's the concept of hashgacha pratit, of divine providence, is a continual reality in this world. My first real experience of the awe of God that I had was when I was able to have an understanding of divine providence happening in my life, and I could actually understand and see how God was moving my life and moving me in the direction that I needed to go in, and that He wanted me to go in. It was one of those situations where I knew I should be doing one thing, and but really was pulled to do something else, and went off in that direction, and of course the universal 2x4 came down very heavy. But the reason, as it's come down many times in my life, when I wasn't following Well, there were times when I really wasn't aware of my inner guidance very clearly, but at that point in time, I was aware of my inner guidance, and I knew what I needed to do, and I knew what was the right thing for me to do, and I did something else. The universal 2x4 came down,
As it does,
would not allow me to go in that direction,
okay.
pushed me back in the direction that I needed to go in, that I knew that I needed to go in, and it was obvious to me. It was clear that this is what was happening. Oh, I had made a mistake. I was going off in the wrong direction, and he wasn't letting me go there. I was like I was being turned around and pushed in another direction.
Yes.
Which is not the direction that I, my little ego, wanted to go in.
Yes.
I wanted to do something else.
Yes.
And I couldn't. I was turned around, and at that point I understood not just the guidance in my own personal life, the way divine providence was functioning, but I understood that what was happening to me was perfect for all the other people who were involved in my little story and drama about going off in the wrong direction, and that what happened to them in this little drama with me was perfect for what was happening to the other people in their lives, and so on. And that there was this great director in the sky, for lack of a better term, who was directing, 7 billion plays simultaneously.
Yes, indeed.
Each fitting perfectly, interlocking. We use the phrase a lot, especially in New Age, that the world is perfect. But it really is. These things fit together, these stories, these plays, these little incidents of what's happening in each of our lives fit together perfectly, and that's the divine guidance.
Amazing, isn't it?
And to understand that and to experience that. And so I went off in the direction that I needed to go in, and went back to the States. I'm skipping over the incident with Master Chia.
Well, we'll get back to that.
We'll get back to that. And I had no idea why I had to leave Israel at that point, why I needed to go to Phoenix, Arizona, of all places, who I had absolutely nothing to do with up until that point in time, and allowing myself to be directed in that direction was a major shift in my life, and in learning to trust divine guidance and to know that everything is going to work out.
We keep talking about God as it and he or she, but surely that's not correct. Shalom. It's not something outside of us. It's not an old man in the sky or an it up there in the sky. It's, as I understand it, and this is one of the things I got from my diving into New Age teaching, is God is really, it's making up all that is, so it's the deepest self, the true self within all things. You would agree with me there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yes. It's one of the paradoxes. The sages put it that God fills up all spaces, and yet God dwells within everything. God surrounds everything and simultaneously dwells within everything. When we were in that place of separation, the metaphor that my teacher in the States uses is that consciousness, awareness is like a many-story building. And the view from the ground floor is different from the view from the second floor or the 10th floor or the penthouse. And all the views are correct.
Okay.
All the views are correct, even though you might, if you compare the view from the penthouse and the view from the first floor, they can appear very contradictory. But they're not. They're all the same. So from that level of the building where we're living in separation, then we talk about God as being him, it, or the Holy One, or whatever.
Yes.
As so that we can, but essentially, There really is nothing but God.
Now, you have this attraction and this love of Judaism, and you call yourself an Orthodox Jew. And it was a question by an Orthodox Jewish man. And he says he asks Kryon, he says, well, I am Orthodox Jew and I love keeping the mitzvot, but what about this matter of thou must, this implication which people usually associate with commandments? You got to do it, and if you don't, then you're sort of breaking some kind of law. And Kryon answered that indeed there are valuable and beautiful things in this tradition, and he's touching them. But if something is done out of a sense of having to, that's the old energy, and is not appropriate for the world that we are moving into. And if it's done from love and choice, indeed, there's a lot of value in there. And well, for me, that spoke deeply, because I think things can't, not today, it's not appropriate. It's not the time to keep these things because we're supposed to, and it's a commandment. And there's got to be freedom, there's got to be choice, and there's got to be, and if we choose not to, it can't be a sin, or it can't be that we're doing something, quote, wrong. What would you say about Kryon's answer and about what I'm saying here?
We'll have to go a little bit into the Hebrew language, because the Hebrew language is a language of creation, and it contains a lot of understanding in it that is lost in the translation and in the meaning that words have taken on in the last 2,000 years in the West of the Christian world of commandment and sin and what that means. The Hebrew word for mitzvah, which is usually translated as commandment, and on one level it does have that meaning, but it comes from the root of the word savta, which means togetherness. And the commandments are seen as ways of connecting with God, and of ways of God connecting with us. Sure. In our Western world, in the modern 21st century of rampant individualism, which I would translate as rampant egoism.
Very often.
Yeah. You see, because it's our identification of self with the ego that keeps us separated from the holiness within. The commandments,
Indeed.
The commandments create bridges, create pipelines, create connections, a bringing together, tzavta, mitzvah, of the holy and the individual.
That's interesting, because as an amateur student of the Keys of Enoch, this is actually, there's a whole chapter in there about one Hebrew prayer, the Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tsebaot, Malo Kol Aretz Kvodo, Holy, Holy, Holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole world is filled with His glory, and another whole chapter about another central Hebrew prayer called the Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And in both of these chapters, they talk about how literally meditating and saying with intent these two prayers literally connects us with the divine overself, with God. and with our higher selves, and that they could even heal our body by meditating on them, and all kinds of things very much along the lines of what you're saying right here. As like tubes, as pipes connecting us. Yes, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
And I just want to bring in experience, my real first experience of Shabbat.
The Sabbath.
The
Saturday.
Sabbath. Yes, the Sabbath.
Friday
evening
Friday
and
night
Saturday. 25 hours of thou shalt not work. It's a period of non-doing. It's a period where we are forbidden to cook, drive a car, use electricity.
And then again,
forbidden.
Yes. I have trouble with that idea of forbidden, which I'm bringing out here.
That's why I want to bring this experience. It was a Friday afternoon, and the custom is can't cook, so food is prepared on Friday and is kept warm on a platter which burns, a hot plate which keeps the food warm for the 24-hour period. The house is cleaned, showered, dressed. Everything is waiting for the
queen of the Sabbath,
the Sabbath queen, for the darkness to come and the Sabbath to enter. And that period of twilight, that period of change, is a very powerful time.
Indeed.
And
yes.
I had finished, everything was prepared, and I had about 5 minutes or so to go before it was time to go to the synagogue. At this point in my life, I had stopped working as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist. I was taking a break from that. I was actually doing a manpower retraining course in computer programming, which I thought I would be good at because I was good in science when I was younger. This was in my late 40s by now. And I found the course to be very hard. And I would open up the computer room at 8 o'clock in the morning and shut it down at 10 o'clock at night. And it was intensive all the time. That's the way I was able to work my way through and to learn the stuff that I needed to learn to become a computer programmer. And I walked out onto my balcony right at this time of twilight. My balcony overlooks a very pretty part of Jerusalem where the museum is, and there's a monastery in the valley, and the Knesset building. That time of twilight is a very quiet time in Jerusalem. Everything stops. There are no more buses. There are no trucks on the road. Most people are at home, so there are very few cars at home on the road. And it's just a very beautiful, quiet time. And
I agree.
I walked out onto my balcony, which was looking west as the sun was setting over behind the Israel Museum. Put my arms on the balcony, on the railing, and I just I gave this big sigh and I said, "Oh, thank God it's Shabbos and I don't have to go to the computer room." Something inside of me heard what I said, and I said, "Oh, thank you, God, that it's Shabbat, that it's the Sabbath, and I can't go to the computer room. Thank you, God, for forbidding me to do any of those things. Thank you, God, for forcing me to make a space to connect with you." And as I'm going through hearing these things inside of me, this voice inside of me saying these things, this incredible energy and light and was just kept pouring down into me. And I understood what the Sabbath is about. I understood why we're not permitted, where we're told you can't do any of these things, because you have to make a space. So his commandments, and I'll use that word now, his commandments, thou shalt not do all those things on the Sabbath day, opens up a space that I can commune with God. 6 days you work. The sages say that the essence of the creation is the seventh day, because that's the day that we commune with God. That was the space for it. And I can remember the next day when I was going out for a walk. Actually, I was walking up towards the museum in the park, and there were these lovely flowers on the ground, and I sort of bent down as I would have in the past to pick the flower, and to smell it and to be with the flower. I couldn't pick the flower anymore. I just didn't want to disturb anything in nature. Anything this is the world, this is the way it is, this is the space for communion for God. So yeah, there are commandments, but in order to the way I see them is that the commandments are necessary to overcome the resistance of the personal ego. You're not going to tell me what to do. And that personal ego needs to be overcome. And there's a real freedom of a whole other sort that comes through submitting.
Yes, I could.
And that goes off into a whole other discussion, but submitting in the sense of letting go of all my personal small ego, little I things that I place so much importance on the other 6 days of the week, and letting that go. And there is such an incredible freedom in that I do not understand how I was able to live before that.
Certainly, it can be very empowering, very blessing, a Sabbath day. But he told me that he would pray again, like you say, the tubes of the mitzvot to connect you. I could get that, So I had a great friend and teacher named Joseph Lazaro. Sometimes in a very unorthodox way, in a very non-traditional, not supposed to do it that way type of way. But the Ramban says you have to do it this way, and he was the Ramban, and who are you to go against some great being like this historical Ramban or Rambam? And in other words, they would say to him, who are you to make any change at all? And he says to me, but if we're not free to follow our own understanding and our own heart in our lives, then we are lost. Okay, so okay, I understand these practices could be very empowering, but in the end, we have to follow our own inner understanding and not something that's written somewhere. Would you agree?
Not the way you're putting it.
Okay. And how?
Now, when you say not, we have to follow our own understanding and not something that's just written somewhere. I don't consider the Torah and the writings of the sages.
I know you do not.
To be something that's just written somewhere.
I know you don't.
I think that there's powerful truths in that. The sages ask, where was the light of creation hidden when creation was brought into being? And one of the answers that they give is that it was hidden in the letters of the Torah, so that the light is concealed. When you study, you connect with the light.
And I've experienced that.
And so the light is there in the letters, in the words, in these books, and the light is telling me something. The light is,
yes,
and it's connecting. What it's doing is it's connecting with the light that exists within me, and then the truth that light is enclosed in the words, enters into me.
Yes, and also the keys of your
house. And then it's not just something that's written somewhere. It's the hidden light of God out there, in inverted commas, is connecting with the hidden light of God in here. And it's the same light, and it's one thing. And so the truth resonates.
Yes.
It's not something that's just written somewhere.
Yes. Okay.
And so
I've had that, yes.
So for me, it's I could say in your language, yeah, that is my truth. But it's not my truth. It's not Shalom's truth. It's the truth that Shalom is experiencing.
Okay.
And so when I am aware of that truth, and then I go off in another direction, well, the universal 2x4 comes around again, and you know, it's 2x4, 4x8, 8x16. Yeah, it's got various.
You could tell that he worked in what store did you work in Phoenix? You worked
Home Depot.
Home Depot. You can tell this is a man who worked in Home Depot at age 60-something, right?
Yeah,
you were working there. With kol hakavod that you have the courage to make such a shift and to do such a work that many people would feel would be too hard at such an age. And you know, in the Keys of Enoch, they talk about how the Hebrew letters, they talk a lot about the Hebrew letters, are actually, each one is a divine idea. It's like a thought of God. And when you start working with these letters, amazing things happen sometimes. And, okay, as long as we're talking about the Hebrew letters, I would love to jump to this. Okay. Well, Shalom, I know that they invite you all over the world. They have, including places like Australia, if I recall.
No, not Australia, no.
Oh, well, okay. But all over the world, you've been invited to teach about this, what is called in English the Tetragrammaton, the sacred four-letter name of God. So, what is it that you've been teaching? I mean, what is so special about these letters and the combination the way they are?
Okay. What I've been teaching really needs to be taught to fully understand it and to experience it. But to give you the outline, the basic understanding of what it's all about, the four letters of the Tetragrammaton, the four letters of the name of God, is the blueprint of the creation of the universe. These are the major building blocks from which the universe was created, and through which the energy from the infinite light comes down into creation and keeps creation going. Were that stream of light to cease, creation would disappear. This is the sustaining force that through which creation was created and through which creation is sustained. Just to use an example, were we to stand too close to the sun, we would just disappear and become helium atoms or hydrogen atoms. We couldn't exist so close to the source of our life.
Yes.
If we're too far from the sun, we also would cease to exist. It has to be the right distance from the source that will allow existence to exist separately.
Of course. For us, for our existence, yes. Okay.
So that these four letters of the name of God, one can think of them as a kind of series of step-down transformers. Of course, that's a highly oversimplified and incorrect description, but that's the idea. It allows for the infinite light. Were we to stand too close to it, we would be reabsorbed into the Godhead, and allows for the light to be attenuated, as it were, so that we can exist as a separate aspect of God.
Okay. So what we have there, maybe you could point as I say it, or as you said, tell us about each one of these letters, would you mind?
Well, it's going to get very complex if I start going into each of the letters. Suffice it to say that the crown, the very top, is that the place where the connection to the infinite light is, and through which the infinite light streams down through the four letters and into creation.
And that's the Yud, the little one at the top.
That's the very point, the very crown of the Yud is where the connection is. And the Yud is the first, it's actually before creation. The Yud is actually before manifest creation. The second letter, the Hey, is more of what, well, we're going to get too complex here. It's a more solidified form of creation, although it's still totally etheric. The Vav is
the Vav, the third one.
The third letter down.
Long straight third one.
Long straight third letter, which brings the very fine vibrations of the first level of creation of the Hey into more forms, called the world of formation. And then it comes down into the final letter Hey, which is the final receptacle, which is the world that we live in, the world of action, the world of solidity, the world of solidity, of materialism. And each of these qualities, as they come down, are embedded to a greater or lesser extent within the human body, within the human structure.
Well, it does look like a man standing there a little bit, don't you
That's
think?
because, yes, that's not coincidental. And
so, like the head is the Yud, the shoulders and the arm, and maybe the shoulders
the
and the
Vav is
arms
the torso.
is the Hey. The Vav is the torso, and the pelvis and the legs is the bottom Hey.
Yes.
And you say that it's not by accident that it's drawn that way.
No.
Because are you saying the head is connected to the Yud? The shoulders and the arms are connected to the Hey,
According
and so forth?
According to the descriptions of the Ari, of the Tree of Life, and the Kabbalistic description of the Sefirot, this is the way it's, yes.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, now, of course, Yud, the little at the top, the little one at the top, first of all, it means hand in Hebrew, doesn't it?
Yud means hand, yes. It also means 10.
It also means 10. And where 10 is what the Jews need. Well, we have 10 fingers and
10 Sefirot.
And you need 10 Jewish men to pray together in a minyan.
That's
so
right.
10 is very holy.
10 is a very...
And if you change the letters of 10, you get shar. Isn't that right? Which is gate. Eser and sha'ar is the same letters of the word 10, which is eser.
Yes,
can
that's
be
right.
switched around and you get gate.
Yes, that's
sha'ar.
true. Yes, right.
So also Yod being the first letter of the word Yashar, like in Yisrael, Yashar meaning straight. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, now what about the first two letters alone stand for God, don't they?
It's holographic.
Yes.
Everything is contained in everything. The very top of the Yud is contained within the Yud. The Yud is contained within the Hey. If you stretch the Yud out, you can see that all the letters are constructed from that little dot up there, as it were.
Yes.
It's an expansion and a bringing into manifestation. That's the best way that I can describe it. And so the process is becoming aware of how this infinite light comes down through these worlds in these more attenuated forms until it reaches us here in the world of action, of materialism. And the process of the meditation is to learn how to ascend back through these same channels up to the source, and to bring down more of the abundance, of the shefa, of the
abundance
of the infinite light down into this world. In Hebrew, it's called Ratzov V'Shov. It's so that the light comes down, comes through. We learn the process of tikkun, could even be said to be a process of learning how to ascend back through the letters to the source, to bring down the energy into ourselves, refining our materialistic and actions in order to be able to ascend further and to. So this is the process of the meditation.
Okay.
That of ascending, gathering the. It's first of all a gathering of the infinite light that's hidden within our bodies, and learning how to bring that up through the four worlds, and to, as we ascend into the more refined energies, to bring those energies back down
Into the physical.
And
Okay.
That's the essence of the meditation, and I guess because we're working with such holy letters and with such a holy process, which is, as I said at the beginning, it's the blueprint of creation.
Okay.
So that when we're tapping into this meditation, we're bringing down the highest of energies, and the meditation can be very powerful. I have people who have been meditating for years and years and years who have told me that this is the most powerful meditation that they've experienced.
Well, I've experienced it quite a few times, and it's amazing, Shalom. So we'll be putting your email address so that people can be contacting you. And one last thing, the Yud, isn't that so that the Yud is connected with sort of the male energy and the Hay with the female energy?
Yeah, there is that aspect of it as well. Of male energy, actually, the way they speak about it in the Kabbalah is the energy of giving, using as the basic metaphor the ability of man to impregnate, to give a seed.
Yes.
And the feminine energy being the receptive, the ability to receive and to nourish.
To receive and then turn that...
and to turn that reception into giving.
Into giving itself.
That is, in essence, the whole, if one could talk of the purpose of creation, is for us to learn to receive, to bring it into ourselves, and to give it out into the world again.
Yes.
To go up, to receive, to bring down, to pass out, in a continual cycle.
Okay, and of course this word is the most sacred word, and it's so sacred that most Jews won't even say it. Yes. It's at the core of our two most sacred prayers, the Shema Yisrael. It's repeated more than once in the Shema, the Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And also in the Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Holy, Holy, Holy is the Lord of hosts. So, and there's great healing power in this word. I mean, tremendous.
It's not a word.
It's not a word. But then what is it?
We call it a word because we don't know how to talk about it, but it's not a word. You condense this into a word. It's a representation. It's a manifestation. It's a blueprint. It's a container. It's a force. It's everything and it's nothing.
Okay. Well, yes, like God Himself is all things and no thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Herself, Himself.
Itself.
Okay, Shalom. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I actually wanted to talk about your Asian great master teacher in the middle, and then get to where you are today, which is Judaism. But maybe just tell us a little bit about this Asian master who you lived with.
Yeah, I spent 3 years in Thailand in the center of Master Mantak Chia, a fairly well-known Taoist master. Who's written something like 20 books. I was fortunate that when I met him, I was in between. I had nothing going for me, and he was just opening up his center, and he was looking for a psychologist who might be able to come out and help him write his books. And I said, I know a psychologist who's not doing anything. That was certainly one of the divine providence messages that I just knew that this was something that I needed to do, and there was nothing to stop me, and I did it. And I spent 3 years with him. I didn't get to write books with him. I did other things in the center, but that's the way things developed. But for me, in terms of my own path, What was most important for me was that through the meditations and the qigong and the Chinate Sang healing system that I learned with Master Chia, I was able to make a very profound shift from being very much of a mental person, and during those 3 years out there, my whole intuitive side opened up, and some of the things that I've been talking about now really are understandings after Master Chia that came to me. We kind of went out of chronological order here. Master Chia predates that and was a major shift in opening up my intuitive side, so that I could begin to receive and understand some of these understandings. And I learned the system of healing of Chinate Sang, and as I was working with that, I began to, which is working with the energy centers of the body and opening up blockages in the energy centers in order to allow healing to take place, because according to this understanding, most illness is a result of both blockages and imbalances in the 5 energy systems that the Taoists speak about. And so by working on rebalancing the energy and feeding energy into the systems that need it to get energy, it's all intuitive work. There's no way, there's no medical test that can say, oh, okay, the wood energy is low, it has to be, you have to get in there with your hands and sense and touch. And sense. My sensory organs ceased to be my ears, which is what I would do in therapy, and became my fingers. I had to listen to my fingers. Well, how do you listen to fingers? Can't listen to fingers with your brain. You can only listen to your fingers intuitively. And so this helped me to open up my whole intuitive side. And with time, I found that I was able to, even using the vehicle of talk, which took more time for me to be able to develop that into intuitive talk, in the same way that I was using my hands in the healing system. But eventually I was able to do that, so that now when I work with people, I'm very much aware of their energy system, what's going on in their energy system, and where there are blockages in their energy system. I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's just an intuitive understanding that I receive when I'm talking with someone. And then because I've been fortunate enough to have done all of this work and have cleared out my own system, then just the way when I was doing hands-on energy work and the energy would come through my hands to do the healing, something comes through and says the things that open up the energy blockages in the person's understanding of what's going on in his life. So that was a very, very profound period and profound shift, and I will always be ever grateful to Master Chia for the opportunity to have been able to spend those 3 years with him.
Okay, and maybe just a little closing question on my part. Do you know anything about something called Ophanim Yoga?
Ophanim Yoga? Nope.
Well, I've heard that it's actually it's like a Hatha Yoga of body positions, but based on the Hebrew letters, where you try to, or somehow you put your body into different positions that are expressive or symbolic or looking like the Hebrew letters. I've had a friend who was very, very into that, and just wondering if they.
I'm not familiar with it. I know from my work with Master Chia that the Taoist meditations and the Qigong exercises will open up the energy system.
I'm sure of that.
And I know that I was also taught a series of visualizations of moving the energy through these channels, through these worlds that are connected to the prayers and specific movements in different parts of the prayers that will raising the name from the lower levels to the higher levels that are connected to the various parts of the different prayers. And I learned that before I went to Thailand, and I know that while doing the Qigong and the Taoist meditations, that it opened up channels so that my ability to work the Hebrew visualizations, wow, took a great jump forward. So again, this may be a way of your earlier question of how things feed in and provide basis.
Where did you learn that? You say you learned that this technique with the prayers. In what context?
I learned it from a rabbi here in some 20 odd years ago before I left. When I was
Is this some type of tradition?
Oh yeah, yes. It's in you can find forms of it in Aryeh Kaplan's book on meditation, on Kabbalah and meditation. He has some of the permutations of what the ancient Kabbalists did is that they would permutate the letters of the name of God in different ways, in different combinations that included sometimes more than the 4 letters and into long combinations, and also included permutations of other names of God within this name of God.
Okay.
And those were used in as visualizations to help raise the prayers.
I think it's very important in Jewish tradition to work with things like this, to integrate body and mind, and not to have only in mind and only in thought. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I never heard that. What you said.
Yeah. No, in Aryeh Kaplan's book on Kabbalah and meditation, there are some of those permutations there. But the ones that I learned from a rabbi, from a teacher in Jerusalem, who's still teaching today, and Rav Daniel Stavsky is here in Jerusalem.
Okay.
And then when I came back from Thailand, and I was here for a couple of years, and did not succeed in reintegrating into Israel, and I needed to be expelled again. And that was that earlier, when I was talking about earlier on, of knowing that I needed to go back to the States, but took a detour someplace else and wasn't allowed to. Things were not working out for me here in Israel, and this is another important stepping stone. I sat down and was meditating and was trying to figure out, as was my custom then, what's the energy in me that's creating this reality that isn't allowing me to settle well here in Israel, to resettle back in Israel. And the message I got was, don't go there anymore, don't keep looking at your issues, you've worked your issues enough. The more you look at your issues now, the more energy you're giving to your issues, and you're just reinforcing them. And so I just stopped, and then I didn't know what to do. And then I don't want to go into all the details because they're not so relevant, but then something popped into my life that showed me that, I need to go to the States. And then I got detoured from the States, and then I got back to the path on the States. And I did not know why I was going to Phoenix. I just knew this is where I needed to go. When I got there, I met the teacher that I've been studying with for the last 10 years, a Rav, Michael Shapiro, who has an uncanny ability to both connect to divine sources and to bring through the energy of his teachings, of the source of the teachings, of the rabbis and sages that he's teaching from, in words that are so profoundly simple that both the teaching and the energy come straight through. and I spent 10 years studying with him, and I found at the same time, purely by coincidence, right, i.e. divine guidance, I walked into the synagogue one day, met by coincidence, sat down next to a man who started talking to me, says, "You're new in town, where are you living, what are you doing?" Found out I had no Jewish, wasn't doing anything on Friday night for Shabbos. He says, "You're coming to my house this Friday." Just like that. Continued talking. It turns out that he's one of the foremost homeopathic doctors in America. He has clients coming from all over the country. He has a very large practice. He's an MD with an alternative practice today, Dr. Avram Ber. And he invited me to work in his office with him. And it was an incredible opportunity. There I was learning from this rabbi the secrets that I was learning, integrating them into myself, and using them in my work with my patients.
You know,
And so I finally understood why I was being sent to the States. And I always knew I'd be back when the time was right. And that's it. I completed what I needed to learn, apparently, what I needed to learn in Phoenix. And now it's time for me to be able to, I always need to continue learning, that'll always happen, and to be able to teach now, really, some of the learnings that I've absorbed, to be able to work with people, to do the kind of healing work that I do, and somehow I think primarily, or at least equally as important, to be able to work with other healers and other therapists, to bring them along the path and help them develop the way they need to develop.
I'm sure you'll be doing that, Shalom. I feel it. And I just want to say, you know, for me, Arizona, I've never been, but I have an Apache friend who lives there, Joel, and who's an amazing teacher and wise man. And for me, it's a very sacred place, this whole, what they call the Four Corners area.
Yeah.
Maybe you just needed to be in that sacred energy. Did you feel a sacred space?
Yeah. It's very interesting because one of the four schools of naturopathic medicine is in Phoenix, which is a small state and not, you know, all desert, or not all desert, but primarily desert.
Yeah, you mean a small city?
No, actually, Phoenix is a large city today. It's the 5th largest city in the States, I learned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's grown. And, but it's a very conservative state. It's very surprising that the state of Barry Goldwater
yes.
coexists with one of the four naturopathic schools. And there's a large New Age community, for lack of a better term,
yes.
in Phoenix. So there is something out there, and I certainly could never have known why I needed to go to Phoenix before I left. I left with very little money. I didn't have any money in my pocket. I didn't know how I was going to exist. I could sit here for an hour and tell stories of divine guidance that took me from one place to another place to another place, and whatever I needed was there at the moment that I needed it.
Amazing.
Yeah. But at that point, I guess I was ready to be able to see that consciously and to allow myself to have the faith. But to have the faith is really not the right word, but because it's a knowing. It's not faith anymore. It's a knowing. When you're on the path, when you're doing the right things, when you're listening to your inner guidance, when you are able to connect to that voice, doesn't mean that stuff doesn't come up and get in the way. I certainly do not want to give any impression that I'm any kind of, I have my trouble and I have my issues and I have my stuff that keeps coming up, and this period of reintegration into Israel, these first 6 months, have been very hard and very difficult, and I found myself but it's all grist for the mill. Was it Ram Dass who said that? Grist for the mill?
Oh, no.
it's all grist for the mill, and hopefully the mill is chewing it up, and
good things are coming.
and good things. Well,
Amen.
it's not my choice anymore.
Okay.
It's yeah, but I certainly don't want to give the impression that I'm just an.
Oh, Shalom, you give an impression of humility and of a humble teacher, and a man open to learning. You know, a teacher is a student, and you're both. Yeah.
Always.
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much, Shalom.
Thank
It's
you.
been a real
It's been-
privilege.
I haven't had many opportunities to do this kind of a thing.
Well, it's overdue.
It's-
And thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much
thank
for
you
the
all.
opportunity.
Okay.